first, I have been asked to introduce our special guests tonight, non-members of the Inn, and one of our special guests is actually, of course, an honorary member of the Inn. Later on, Professor David G. Epstein will be formally introduced by Ward. He is a special guest tonight. And of course, Dr. William D. Underwood, the president of Mercer University, is a special guest. And Judge Homer Drake of the Northern District of Georgia and his son, Taylor Drake. So thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to hearing from David a little later. Now, if you look at your program, you'll see that I've been asked to have a very special part on this program in presenting a duplicate copy of the charter of our Inn to Mercer University. In 2014, largely on the initiative of Jim Frenzel and with encouragement of others, most of whom are present here tonight, the Georgia Bankruptcy Inn of Court was founded to encourage education, excellence, professionalism, courtesy, and ethical actions by Georgia lawyers involved in the practice of this special area of law, bankruptcy. Shortly after it was founded, the Inn adopted the name W. Homer Drake, Jr., Georgia Bankruptcy Inn of Court, to honor our long-serving bankruptcy judge in the Northern District, who has contributed so much to the practice of bankruptcy law, not only in Georgia through his service as an attorney, referee in bankruptcy, bankruptcy law practitioner, bankruptcy judge, adjunct professor at University of Georgia and at Emory, and also served the country as a principal proponent and author of portions of the Bankruptcy Code of 1978. As founder of the Southeastern Bankruptcy Law Institute, the premier educational seminar for bankruptcy judge lawyers in the United States, and as co-author of 3 bankruptcy law treatises, as a member of the Judicial Conference of the United States Committee on Administration of the Bankruptcy Courts, and president of the National Conference of Bankruptcy Judges, and countless other services to the U.S. courts, the bankruptcy bar, and the public. Judge Drake has had a long relationship with Mercer University here in Macon. He graduated from its undergraduate school in 1954 and its law school in 1956. He long served as a member of the university's Board of Trustees and was chairman of the board in 2009, 2011, and now serves as a life trustee. He has long worked to return college football to Mercer, which has named the beautiful new field house at the beautiful new football stadium the Homer and Ruth Drake Fieldhouse, in honor of Judge Drake and his late wife, Ruth. We are pleased that Judge Drake and his son, Taylor, are here with us tonight. The American Inns of Court issues a charter to each inn. The charter that we have over here is number 436. On January the 22nd, 2015, during a ceremony many of us in the room attended in Noonan, the original charter, number 436, was presented to Judge Drake in the courthouse in Noonan, Georgia, where he continues to hold court. A second original of that charter is here today, and it's my great privilege to present it to the Law School of Mercer University, where it will be displayed to further honor Judge Drake and to encourage the principles for which he and the American Inns of Court stand. Here to receive the charter on behalf of Mercer University is its president, Dr. William Underwood, who is himself an attorney. And Dr. Underwood, here it is. It may be a little big for you to carry off at this time.
I hereby receive. Several years ago, Judge Drake and I were involved in a conspiracy. We had studied the issue and decided that Mercer needed to bring a Division I college football program back to Middle Georgia. We encountered a sea of naysayers. Everywhere we looked, people told us that it couldn't be done. So we met with one group after another. We met with the faculty, where it was very entertaining to watch Judge Drake rule an English professor out of order. We met with the staff, we met with alums, we met with community people. And the day arrived when the Board of Trustees of the university was going to vote on this initiative. The evening before, Judge Drake asked me what I thought the outcome would be. And I told him I was very good at counting votes and that we would prevail, but there would be a number of dissenting votes on the board. And he said, I'll bet you a steak dinner that the vote is unanimous. I said, Judge, I'll take that bet because I've counted and I've talked to every one of the trustees and it will not be unanimous. He said it will be. Let's bet a steak dinner on it. So the motion was made the next day. Judge Drake called for the vote. He said, all in favor, say aye. Around the room, we heard a number of ayes. He took his gavel, he put down the gavel, he said, motion carries unanimously. So you all admire Judge Drake as an extraordinary bankruptcy judge, and we certainly are proud to call him a Mercer graduate in that capacity. But at Mercer, we also admire him for being a determined and effective leader during his term as our board chair. So it will be a great privilege and honor for us to hang this in a visible, appropriate place in the School of Law. And thank you very much for presenting this to the law school.
Thank you, Judge Laney, and good evening. I'm Ward Stone. I'm counselor of the Inn for this year, mercifully only for a few more minutes. But I want to thank you all for coming to Macon for our annual dinner. The turnout was projected precisely at 72. Fortunately, 5 who registered didn't appear, and 5 who I wasn't aware of did appear. So we're exactly where our plan told us we would be. I have the great privilege tonight of, before we get to our business session, of introducing our speaker, Professor David G. Epstein. I've known Professor Epstein for a while, and we actually handled a case or two together when he was at King at Spalding. The bar in general was delighted when he went back to professorship to avoid the difficulties of wrestling with him in court, which was always a challenge. But these days, Professor Epstein is at the University of Richmond School of Law, where he holds the law school's prestigious George E. Allen Chair and teaches in the areas of bankruptcy, commercial law, contract law, and corporations. He's also served as dean at Emory University School of Law and the University of Arkansas Law School, and has held tenured law faculty positions at Southern Methodist University, University of North Carolina, University of Texas, and University of Alabama. He taught as a visiting professor at Harvard, Georgetown, University of Michigan, New York University, and University of Chicago, all at the time rotating as from time to time as a partner with King and Spalding. Professor Epstein has authored or co-authored numerous books, book chapters, and articles on bankruptcy, commercial law, and contract law. He is an elected member of the American College of Bankruptcy and the National Bankruptcy Conference. Tonight, Professor Epstein is going to speak to us for a few minutes on the issue of lien stripping and bankruptcy, which is why we didn't invite spouses to this dinner. Professor Epstein.
Thanks for the generous introduction, but even more than that, thanks for the invitation. It's great to be back here, to have this opportunity to see so many friends. And this time of the year, this invitation is especially welcome because this is the time of the year that I roam around the country lecturing on the bar exam, trying to get people ready for the bar exam on the subject contracts. And so from the middle of May until July 5th, I've got a contracts lecture that I'll try not to lapse into tonight. So it's nice to have a chance to talk about something other than contracts. And it's especially poignant, as I was telling Judge Drake, to be back here in Macon, because it brought to mind the first time I came to Macon. First time I came to Macon, the university was generous enough to be recruiting me to be the law school dean. And so the first time I came to Macon was to try to think about moving to Macon and becoming the law school dean. The president of Mercer at that time was a gentleman named Rufus Harris. And Rufus had been dean of the law school. God, to me at that time, it seemed like he must have been dean of the law school 100 years ago. And so he kept telling me how much cheaper he was able to run the law school than the guy that had been running it, and how he was sure I was going to be able to follow his model. And in case I couldn't have followed his model, he was going to give me help in running the law school the way he had. And so if Mercer had only had a president like Bill Underwood when I was being interviewed, it would have turned out differently. I've been asked to talk about lien stripping, talk about bankruptcy. As long as I'm reflecting, bankruptcy has changed tremendously over the time I've been doing bankruptcy. I think one of the big changes, although not in Georgia, and you guys aren't going to fully understand this, but one of the big changes in bankruptcy in other parts of the country has been a huge improvement in the quality of the bankruptcy bench. Now, that's not true of Georgia, but you guys just don't understand how fortunate you've been. My first experience with a bankruptcy judge was when I was trying to be a baby lawyer in Phoenix, Arizona. And the bankruptcy judge in Arizona at that time was a guy named Joe Cracchiolo. And Joe was a brother of a partner in the law firm that I was practicing in. And things worked great as long as Joe was a bankruptcy judge. But then, government investigation, and it turned out that Mr. Cracchiolo had some mob connections. But he apparently was even-handed, and he was taking bribes even from people that weren't mob-connected. But anyway, that was my first experience with the bankruptcy bench. Then, when I was a baby law professor, and I was teaching at the University of North Carolina, the bankruptcy judge in that state, and Jim Frenzel can back me up and tell his own stories, is Rufus Reynolds. Now, Rufus's ethics were a lot different from Joe Cracchiolo's, but he was sort of interesting in his own way. And so you guys in Georgia have sort of been spoiled. There's always been a great bankruptcy bench. I mean, this state has benefited tremendously in terms of the bankruptcy practice. I keep thinking about not only you, Judge Drake, but David Kahn, and just, you know, the wonderful examples that y'all have set that have been met by future judges. In addition to the changes in the bankruptcy bench, of course, been the changes in the bankruptcy law, the 1978 law. Now, the 78 law, of course, changed business bankruptcy a lot more than it changed consumer bankruptcy. Going back further in time, and of course, Judge Drake and a few others will remember this, the original Bankruptcy Commission back in 1970s, in which Frank Kennedy was the executive director. Frank Kennedy's original idea was that consumer bankruptcy was to be an administrative proceeding. But later on, when the people that really wrote the law, and of course they've been SBLI speakers, in some years you guys hear that Ken Clee really wrote the law, in other years you hear Rich Levin wrote the law, but they focused more on Chapter 11 than they did on consumer bankruptcies. And that brings me closer to this subject that I'm going to talk very briefly about, as you've been told and as I've been instructed. And that's the topic of what happens to liens in consumer cases. What happens to liens in consumer cases? And talking about lien stripping in terms of strip down and strip off. And there are, of course, 3 cases that you guys are all familiar with, but let me just real quickly summarize what I think is really important about the 3. The first of the big 3 cases on lien stripping is a do-snip case, right? That's the first of the cases. And everybody remembers that's not really a consumer case. That's not a home mortgage case. That was a case that started out as a Chapter 11 case. And the land was farmland. And the question was, in a Chapter 7 case, is it possible to strip down the lien? In a Chapter 7 case. And we find the court saying, oh, if we were only writing with a clean slate, if we were only writing with a clean slate and looking at what the law says, then we would read 506A and 506D in harmony, and we would say, yes, you can lien strip, but we are not writing with a clean slate. There is pre-code law that we feel obliged to follow. We feel obliged to follow because Congress didn't say anything in the legislative history about changing pre-code law. Everybody's with me? That sort of refresh your recollection about do-snip. That was a Chapter 7 case. And the court again is saying, if we only had a clean slate. Now, let me fast forward to the most recent of the 3 cases, and that's the Colquitt case. That's the Colquitt case. You know how the Colquitt case begins? Oh, if we only had a clean slate. If we only had a clean slate, we would say that you could strip off liens. That if there was no equity, if we only had that, but we don't have a clean slate because of the do-snip case. Now, there are a whole bunch of amicus briefs filed in connection with the Colquitt case. And if you ever want to litigate this, there's some great work done in those amicus briefs. And they make a very strong argument that do-snip got the pre-code law wrong. But we have 2 Supreme Court decisions involving stripping down, can't strip down in 7, can't strip off in 7. We also have the Nobleman case, a Chapter 13 case, that says you cannot strip down in 13. And we have a bunch of circuit court cases, including a case in our circuit that says, yes, you can strip off in a 13. Everybody with me? We got it right so far. Now, let's think about what's open. Let's think about what's open. Well, Judge Davis in Southern District says, I read Colquitt as saying that this question of stripping off in 13 is now open. Because I read Colquitt as saying that the Supreme Court is uncomfortable about drawing any kind of a distinction between stripping down and stripping off. That the Supreme Court talked about, well, gosh, if a judge finds $1 more of value, then you couldn't strip down. But otherwise, if that dollar value is not there. So Judge Davis says, I think that what Colquitt's inviting is a challenge to all these circuit court decisions, including our own circuit, saying that you can strip off in a 13. And indeed, as some of you are aware, that's fixing to be argued to a Sixth Circuit BAP. So that's one take. But you know, there's another thing that's really interesting about the Colquitt decision. The court, in the text that all of the judges joined on, and in a footnote that 6 of the 9 joined on, says, you know what? We're telling you, just to protect ourselves, we're telling you that nobody asked us to overrule Dusnip. And the Supreme Court's saying that twice, that nobody's asking us to overrule Dusnip. And so a possible take on this is that maybe that's where we go next, is back up to the Supreme Court with somebody challenging Dusnip. Of course, that's even harder to predict than usual, right? Because who's going to be on the Supreme Court next go-round? I mean, I'm pretty certain that if Hillary Clinton's elected president, now, if I were Hillary Clinton, first thing I would do, I'd appoint Bill to the Supreme Court and get him out of the way. But Donald Trump, I think, in my mind, it's sort of a toss-up as to who Donald Trump will appoint. If I don't know whether any of you watch The Simpsons. There's a great judge on The Simpsons that Donald Trump might appoint. But if not, that judge from My Cousin Vinny. But anyway, I'm hoping that when one of those judges decides that case, you guys will invite me back to talk about this stuff again. Thanks for having me here. It's great to have this opportunity to see old friends.
Thank you, David. An interesting area and one that we're going to continue to see development, I predict. But before you go too far, I'd ask David to step back up. We have a little memento that we'd like to present you for addressing us tonight that is designed to let you keep up with your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This will be our business session, and it will be short. I have promised to keep my remarks down to 2 hours. But first, I'd like to call on Mike Lambert to give us a treasurer's report as to where we stand with our finances.
I got the cue from Ward to be brief, but I would mention these words, the past, the present, and the future. In the past, we heard President Underwood talk about conspiracy, and I want to comment briefly on a conspiracy that had to do with the formation of the Inn, and the leader of that conspiracy was Jim Frenzel. I was a co-conspirator along with Ward Stone and Kathy Horn. And we all owe a debt of gratitude to Jim for what he did, because he had a vision and brought this to fruition. And what more of an honor than to have Judge Drake to name this after him. So that's our past. We have a great heritage. We have a wonderful leader here that has inspired us in Jim Frenzel, and we have Judge Drake, who has been an example for all of us in many respects through his career. The present, we're solvent. We do not need Chapter 11 lawyers. I know there's a dearth of work, but the end does not need you. We should finish the year with about $12,000 to $14,000 on a go-forward basis. The future, Kenny Stone is on the ballot, and if he doesn't win it fairly, he will win it when I rig it. So he's going to take over this role. But for the future, I do think that the inn may need a bump in the dues. The board may talk about that some here tonight, but the next year a more robust program is planned, and so there'll be additional funding needed for that. So we are in good shape. We have a good man coming on to lead us in the future as the treasurer, and we also have another good team to lead us in the other respects for the end. So unless someone has questions, I am through.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. And I appreciate your work and hard work. There are two offices in the end that require you to sign up for 2 years. One is the treasurer and the other is secretary. So we appreciate your efforts. Kenny, we appreciate you coming on board. Grant is not here. Grant is our secretary. Coming in next year, we have Walter Kelly, who's agreed to, Walter, where are you? There's Walter, who's agreed to sign on for 2 years there, and I appreciate their willingness to help us here. What I'd like to do is just give you a brief state of the inn report, and it won't be 2 hours. First, I'd like to amplify on Michael's report as treasurer. What he intimated is that we will end up in the black this year, but what we have done is cut somewhat into our reserve, which we built up the first year because it was a short year. So what we've done this year that will increase our expenses is something really great, actually. We have upped our social budget. We have had more and better social gatherings in Augusta, in Savannah, in Atlanta, at Georgia State, and we have more of the same planned for next year. So we are increasing our social budget. We're also increasing our program budget. We've had, although a lot of the expense of the program committee has been shifted to social, we still have expenses in program. We have a lot of costs to get things like this put together, which are we're going to continue to try to improve that and to bring you better and better programs. We also have an increase in our technology budget. One of the things we tried to accomplish that we have had to change direction on, our initial goal was to live stream each of these sessions all over the state so all of our members could, at their desktop, tune in and follow the program. For a lot of reasons, which would take 2 hours to go through, that hasn't worked, but we've come up with something just as good, and that is all of our programs are recorded. We're being recorded tonight, and they're all uploaded to the website, and you'll be able to view them on YouTube. Next week, hopefully, the Technology Committee will also send a blast email to remind everyone how to get to the website, and once you get there, how to view these programs. So all of these increases and improvements in the end have resulted in some costs. In addition to that, the national organization has announced an across-the-board $10 per capita dues increase beginning in July. So taking all these things into consideration, the executive committee has voted to increase the dues for next year by $50 per member. That includes the $10 to the national organization, so it's a net of $40 per member for the club. Now, at the end of the day, that puts $4,000 in our budget to help with social programs, to help with technology and to help cover the expenses related to the programs going forward. So you will be all receiving a notice of renewal, membership renewal, and dues with between now and the end of the month for next year. And I would urge you all to get your dues in quickly. Last year, it took a while to get that process finished. So we're trying to get out of the gate a little earlier this year so that hopefully we'll have all the funding in place for the new year, which begins July 1. The membership notice will direct that you forward your dues to Kenny, and there will be in Statesboro, and that address will be on the notice. I'd like to take a moment to thank the officers of the Inn this year for all the work they've put in. I think this is for an organization which is ending its second year. We've come a long way. I'd like to thank Judge Laney for serving as our president, for Michael for all the work he's done as treasurer, and that's a lot of work, believe me. Grant Stein, who's not here right now, is our secretary. Judge Susan Barrett, who wasn't able to be here this weekend, is the president-elect. She'll be coming in July 1. Kathy Horn, bless her heart and mercy on her soul, will take over as counselor in just a few minutes. Jim Frenzel, our immediate past counselor, has been a wonderful source and resource for the executive committee for this year. And then I'd also like to mention our administrative assistant, Mary Catherine Riddick, who is a non-lawyer but has done yeoman's work in trying to get notices out, get the blast emails out to all of you, and keep you informed. This year, I'd like to also thank our committee chairmen who have worked extremely hard and brought the Inn along. First, membership nominations, Mark Maloney and Steve Gunby. That committee effectively stabilized our membership roster and requirements following the first year. In the Inn, you may recall that our associates and barristers have limited terms. We have extended those terms through the end of 2016-2017 to allow us to stabilize. So beginning at the beginning of 2017, the membership committee will be following the bylaws and updating, accepting nominations for new members, and recommending a roster for voting at the meeting next year. Speaking of the bylaws, you all received and voted on, thank you, updated bylaws. We updated the bylaws in light of the experience we received the first year and what we learned, and I think they're much more attuned to meeting the Inn's needs. I understand, however, that the executive committee next year may consider additional amendments to the bylaws, so watch your emails, and if you receive information on that, take a look and result or vote as quickly as you can. Kathy will shortly report the election results, but I'm pleased to announce that they were unanimous. Pupillage and mentoring. Walter Kelly and Neil Gordon did a wonderful job this year. That's the pupillage and mentoring is the core of this Inn. Our function is to provide younger lawyers the opportunity to work with more experienced lawyers, to gain insight, to gain experience, to be able to have contact with judges. When I first started practicing, there were just not many opportunities for young lawyers to attend something like this and interact with judges who had been on the bench a long time. A judge was someone who had an office where you approached, you left your shoes on the outside, and you went in and had a very reverent conference. But this Inn, the purpose is to let everyone get together, learn, and the mentoring and pupillage committee is the core of that. And I want to take hats off to Walter and Neil on pushing that along. All of our members and pupils should be assigned mentors, and I encourage you to be in contact with them. Programs this year was headed by Kathy Horn, and until she ascended to the bench, Lisa Ritchie Craig, and we thank both of you. You did a wonderful job this year. We've had some really, really great programs, and we're looking to hear shortly on some of the ideas for next year's programs. This year, we split the social committee from the program committee, and I think that was a good move because to require the program committee to also plan the receptions and the social events at each program was a little bit of a load that I can attest to. It was a lot to do. But Maggie Puccini and Rob Williamson headed up that this year and have really planned some good events, and I think a lot more will be coming next year. Technology and national awards, Dennis Conley and Dave Burry. I want to thank you guys for taking on the toughest single job in the inn, and that is to get the technology working. Is this thing working tonight? I guess it is. So that's not that easy. It looks easy. It's not. But to go through the options available and then to end up with an option that we can actually afford was the key. And I think we're now there. One of the things we learned is that the inn, rather than trying to find a venue for every meeting where we have the appropriate audiovisual things in place, rather the better rule we found was to identify venues that already have them in place and preferably will let us use them for free. We'd like to thank Mercer Law School, we'd like to thank Georgia State and the University of Georgia for the free use of their live streaming and video facilities, which has really helped us along. And we're in the process of trying to identify more or less permanent venues at each of the locations around the state where we plan to have programs, which will facilitate the audiovisual part of this and allow the members to keep up with us. If you can't attend, you don't have to live stream it, but do go to the website, view the program, and let us know you have viewed the program. So again, hats off to Dennis and Dave. Their other job in that committee is for national awards, and at the end of the year, they'll be pushing to get those applications in for such national awards as we can qualify this year. So thanks again. Community outreach. I'd like to thank Nancy Whaley and Judge Barrett for their efforts here. What evolved this year, again, we're learning, but what evolved this year, as I understand it, is each district is going to have a specific community outreach program specific to the district. Those programs are defined and well underway in the northern and southern district. The middle district is working on it, and I expect that there'll be a program in the middle district by the end of next year. And that's an important part of the end, is to reach out to the community with some community service projects. So I'd like to commend them for all their efforts and work in getting that program down the road. Finally, the Pro Bono Committee, which is Steve Greenberg and Valerie Richmond. I'd like to commend them for getting the Pro Bono program off the ground. That program has been very difficult to define. Our mission, as I said, is to educate young lawyers, to bring them on in the area of bankruptcy, give them encouragement and education. But beyond that, we also have an edict from the national organization to provide pro bono services. And Valerie particularly is reported that the committee is planning to partner with the Georgia State University Bankruptcy Law Clinic to create a bankruptcy education clinic that will be presented to the community. Questions will be submitted from the community, and the particular party who needs the pro bono help will meet with an attorney representative or student representative to actually receive pro bono counseling in bankruptcy. I think that's a very strong program, and I'm proud of them for getting it to the point of being able to get out of the starting gate. As I mentioned in the executive committee meeting the other day, the more complicated programs take the longest to launch. But I think this one will pay off, and I'm very pleased with their efforts, and you should all be as well. So with that, it is with great joy and happiness that I turn over the podium to your incoming counselor, Kathy Horn.
first I want to, can you hear me? Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming, and it's always so nice to see all of you. It has been a challenge, I will say, having a statewide in a court, and a lot of us have talked about this a lot. You know, we're not exactly Rhode Island. So, you know, we're a big state, and we're required by the bylaws to have 6 events a year. And so that 6 doesn't sound like that many till you realize we got this big state to deal with and working around all of the other things. So all in all, I think it's been an amazing success given the challenges of being new and fumbling our way along and the challenge of a state this big. But the people, I've had quite a few people come up to me and say, you know, I wasn't sure how this end thing was going to work for me, but I have met some really interesting people I would not have otherwise known, and it's really been a good thing. So I was glad to hear that. We do have some nominations that were voted on tonight. We have one new master from the Northern District, John Thompson. I saw him. There you are. Thank you. And we also have a new honorary member. That would be Paul Bazier. I don't know if he's here. And then we have an old member, new honorary with Judge Lisa Ritchie Craig. And so we're delighted to have both of them, although we've already had you. Thank you. And now the exciting moment you have been waiting for, the results of the officer elections. Drum roll. After 6 months of hotly contested, a lot of campaigning going on across the state, I'm going to announce our victorious officers. As secretary, we have Walter Kelly, and as Ward mentioned, he'll be serving 2 years. We have Kenny Stone, graciously agreed to be our treasurer, another 2-year appointment. We have Grant Stein, who will be the counselor-elect, and the president-elect will be Judge Bonifel. And the president of the Inn next year will be Judge Barrett. The way this works, if you haven't already figured it out, is the counselor and the president each year, you know, the lawyer and the judge from the same district. So that is our new slate of officers, and I'm so pleased that each one of you has agreed to serve, and I think it will be a good year. Now, I also am supposed to tell you about some of the programs for next year, and there's not a lot of detail at this point, although there's a time frame, sort of a template, as Lisa Ritchie Craig pointed out early on. We needed at least some kind of template. It moves around, but it gives us an idea of what we're doing. And so we're having 2 programs in the fall. There's one early in the fall, and I will around a little on us, but for very good reason. We got a potential wonderful speaker. We have some other things going on that will gel pretty quickly since that's our first program. And then there will be a second program in the fall, and that will most likely be at the University of Georgia, right? And in the January, we will have a program that, I can't read my own handwriting. That's going to be, I think, at, I don't remember where it is. Does anybody can help me out? I'll come back to that one. No, we were at Georgia State. I'll come back to that one. In March, we're going to be at Emory. And then in Savannah for the annual meeting next year. It's going to be good, y'all. And how many are planning on coming to Savannah next year? Everybody wants to come, right? We'll have a good time, I promise you. And I think maybe the only speaker that might be able to upstage Professor Epstein might be, I don't know, Lady Chablis. We'll see what we can do. Let's see, what else am I supposed to do while I'm up here today? The only other thing, Judge Barrett couldn't be here at the last minute, and she was going to have a rousing talk to give, a call to participation. And generally most people, especially the ones in the room, that's the way it always is, have been participating this year. I've seen most of you somewhere, sometime, someplace, multiple times. And we do, well, not only do we encourage and want participation, it's really a requirement of being in the Inn. And we do have the sign-in sheets, as you know, and so at some point we probably need to start paying attention to the sign-up sheets and who logs on and does things, you know, watching the videos or whatever. But you know, the idea of the Inn, again, as Ward said, is the mentoring idea, and I mean, that's huge, the collegiality, the professionalism, and you know, it's one thing to watch it from your desk or, you know, look at the video at home at night. It's a whole different thing to be here in person. So I really do encourage everybody to attend as many in person as possible, and I realize that means some driving for everybody. You know, especially the people in Southeast Georgia. But I do encourage everybody to do that. For next year, we are going to, you know, we are continuing to figure this out as we go along, and we're continuing to grow. And I'll just mention two things that I'm excited about that will be happening next year. One of them is that, as noted, the pro bono committee has been sort of challenging to figure this out. And there is this partnership that we're going to have, but also some of these things really do work better if they're done in the separate districts. So what we're looking at doing in the Southern District, I know in Savannah, for instance, legal services does not have any bankruptcy expertise, and they're always desperate for people to talk about bankruptcy. And so we're looking at maybe having a monthly clinic. We'll start off slow, but the idea being when people call into legal services, they need to talk to a bankruptcy lawyer, creditor, debtor, whatever. They'll be told that there'll be a clinic probably at some place like the public library on such and such a date, and they can go and pose their questions, and we'd probably have 2 lawyers there and a student from Savannah Law School. And although Savannah Law School doesn't have a bankruptcy class yet, it's a very enthusiastic and energetic group of students wanting to learn everything they can. So that's one thing that we're going to be doing. And then just another update on the mentoring committee. In the past year, it's been a real focus, as it should be, on law students. We want to put more focus this coming year on our associates, our youngest members. And for that matter, it doesn't have to be associates. We can have some of the younger barristers, but we need to keep an eye on and an emphasis on our mentoring. So I think that is all I need to say to you tonight. I do need for Ward to come up here 1 minute. Ward has kept us alive this year and done a great job. And what he is not aware of, and I think he's really going to be thrilled, I'm naming him as my chief of staff this year. Congratulations. There you go.
Thank you.
And I think our Judge Laney, you're next, right? And as long as I'm standing up here, let me also thank you. I told him he's going to have to stay on to be our chief proofreader. I mean, these emails go out and from Ward typically and say, everybody read this and look okay. I'll look at it. Yeah, it looks okay. Next thing you know, Judge Laney's sending in an email. He's got 5 things he's discovered that are wrong, and all of us have missed them. So we'll be calling on you to proofread. But here is something for you. I hope you'll enjoy it. And it's heavy. Watch out.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that's fair warning if you don't already know I proofread your pleadings too. In closing, I want to thank David Epstein for coming down to inspire us and amuse us tonight. I want to extend my special thanks to Ward Stone for being the counselor this year, who's continued the tradition that Jim Frenzel established by doing the really hard work for the inn. I want to thank all the other officers and committees, the executive committee, and I want to thank you, the members, for your attendance and support of the ideals and goals of our inn and of the American Inns of Court. I congratulate and wish the best for the officers for the new year. Welcome our new Master John Thompson, our new honorary members, and this meeting, the formal part of this meeting, is adjourned. Thank you.